Hi everyone, welcome to Sonographers in the Cities. I'm Lynn.
And I'm Giselle.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode, and thank you for tuning into other episodes that you have listened or watched on Giselle's channel. We have reached over 11,000 downloads.
Yay! I didn't know that. That's exciting.
Now you know. It is exciting. We're growing slowly.
Yeah, it's crazy because a lot of people are still messaging me about the podcast, and then also new people who are reaching out to join the Discord because of the podcast. So thank you guys for listening and tuning in, and don't forget to keep on letting us know what you want to hear because this podcast is for you guys. And yeah, we hope that you guys enjoy it. Recently, we just did all of the deep dives into sonography in general. So general, abdomen, OBGYN, musculoskeletal, peds, cardiovascular, echovascular. And today we're going to kind of just talk about the differences between hospital and outpatient sonography. So all of the different types of ultrasound, but whether or not you want to work hospital or outpatient. And they're two different worlds, to be honest. And
I agree, they are.
Yeah, Lynn had clinicals in both hospital and outpatient. And I only had clinicals in a hospital setting. And so I worked outpatient after I was a graduated student. So it's two different worlds, but we want to give you guys some differences so you know and you kind of get a feel of which one you would like more. And I think that some people always are confused about things like what they'll see at which one. And so this is kind of just like a little look into hospital versus outpatient. So before we start though, Lynn just finished clinicals. So yay, congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I finished it last week, so I'm on vacation, but we are recording it before I go on vacation. So you will see my background.
Yeah, so, now that you've finished both hospital and outpatient clinicals, I think that you have great insight, right, into the two differences?
Yes, I mean my personal insights have broadened a lot with my clinical experience. But before I say anything, I just wanna, put a disclaimer out there to everyone who's listening or watching that, outpatients and hospitals are different depending on where you are. So I am in New York, and that's vastly different than, you know, California or just so in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just putting it out there.
It's going to be different anywhere you go, but we want to just kind of show you the differences between hospital and outpatient because yeah, like you said, it's going to be different anywhere and everywhere. And even though I work in a hospital, it's different from the hospital that you might have clinicals in or the hospital that you might end up working in. But essentially, we all do the same thing, right? We all get our patients, we all do scans, and that's what we do. We get patients, we scan them. That's what an ultrasound technologist does. But the types of exams and the types of procedures and the things you might see and do is different everywhere you go. So do you want to talk about hospital or outpatient first?
Let's talk about outpatient.
Okay. Were you just at an outpatient facility for your last clinical site?
I was. So I was in 3 sites total. Two of them for my echo were outpatient facilities.
Okay. How'd you like it?
I didn't like it at all.
Ooh, okay.
Like I've said it before. I said it in the past episodes, and I think in your YouTube video too that I had an expectation of after I'm done with this program, I wanted to work in outpatient 9 to 5 because I didn't want to do crazy hours that I thought the hospitals have. And then, completely changed my mind 180 after this clinical experience. I do not like outpatient. I do not like what it, I don't say what it offers, but what there are certain things that I prefer not to do when I'm working, because you have your personal preference on where you want to work and
Right.
all that stuff.
Yeah, and I like that I just like that you mentioned it because some people go into this field thinking, like you said, outpatient, they're gonna do 9 to 5, have holidays off, things like that. And that's one of the biggest differences between outpatient and hospital is that the hours are different and the days you work are going to be different. The types of shifts are different. Obviously, outpatient setting is in the day. You have your patients come in and they are assigned an appointment, and it's usually appointment based. And there are times where you'll get walk ins as well in outpatient. So you have to kind of take that into consideration. And I also like that you said that just your preference, right? Because
Hmm.
let's say there's somebody who has kids and they need the 9 to 5 shift, they need the holidays off, or they need nights off. And that is also why some people would prefer outpatient. And it just depends too, because some people are in hospital for a long time. And then they're like, oh, I think I need to adjust to an outpatient setting eventually, right? So
Yeah.
um, I really like that you show that there's different times to where you would need to be in outpatient or hospital setting. But for you at this time in your obviously now that you're finished, but at this time of your life, you feel like hospital will probably be better for you. And so, are there like
Mm.
for your differences between the
I was
two?
just thinking, I was like, I might want to change the outpatient
Uh huh.
wording, because hospitals have outpatient setting too.
Oh, true, true. I mean, they
So
do.
I would
They
say
do, but
private practice.
yes. The thing is though, because like when you talk outpatient, in hospitals, it's still appointment based, I
Hmm.
think, because most hospitals just have like, oh, well, this is where it all is different, right?
Yeah.
Because most hospitals have outpatient slash inpatient, is what you're trying to say, right?
Yes.
And my hospital has outpatient, but we have a complete different clinic that's connected to the hospital. So it's kind of still it's connected to the hospital, but it's outpatient setting
Mm-hmm. Yes.
versus a private clinic versus an actual outpatient
Outpatient.
facility.
Hmm.
Mhm. So, so you like hospital setting
Yes.
inpatients? Is that what
Both.
that is? Both inpatient and outpatient
I
in a
prefer
hospital setting.
inpatient, but hospital setting ideally.
Okay, okay. That's good.
What about
Yeah,
you?
I like hospital setting as well. And the thing is because I think the major differences between hospital versus outpatient is like, yes, your outpatients, they can walk. That we call them walkie-talkie patients because they can walk in, they can talk to you. They're very usually they can just come on in, they're here for your 30-minute appointment, they come out. It's kind of treated like an appointment-based schedule. You're on that schedule to a T. If you're behind, then the rest of your patients are behind. And
Hmm.
so I like hospital because it doesn't give you that sort of flow. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like in the hospital, I get a bunch of patients. A lot of these patients are already in the hospital, like in their hospital beds. So I go to them and I don't have a time constraint usually on like, it's not like, oh, there's an appointment every 30 minutes kind of thing.
Hmm.
It's I get to my patients when they're needed or when I can get to them. And then the ER patients, you don't know who's coming in through the ER. It's so crazy. It's so random. It's ultrasound roulette per se, because you never know what's going to happen. And I just like that setting more than outpatient. Not saying that outpatient is bad or anything. We're not saying that. We're just saying the differences between the two.
Yes.
But I prefer hospital in that reason. And I think it's also mainly because I did my clinicals at a hospital. I've heard that a lot of people who do clinicals and outpatient kind of get used to that and they really like that. And then once they transition to hospital, they're like, whoa, like this is different. And it can kind of get harder to work in a hospital than it is outpatient because you see a lot of pathology, a lot of crazy things in hospital settings. But you still see that in outpatient. I just don't think you see it as much as you would in a hospital.
I totally agree because in um when I was in the hospital for my clinicals. I was there for 6 months. I saw a lot of pathologies. I learned a lot. My 6 months in the private facility, outpatient, I saw one.
Mhm.
Like, if you've been following me on my Instagram, last quarter I didn't share any because I didn't see any pathologies. I saw a myxoma last week, you know. That was like, ending my day, ending my last day of clinical on a myxoma. That was like the only like major pathologies I've seen. Other than that, it's just, very routine. You scan, you have like less than 15 minutes to scan. It's just crazy. I
Mm,
just feel personally, I feel like I'm not doing the patients justice to, thoroughly evaluate them. That's
mm,
why I prefer hospital setting more because you like you said, you don't have a time constraint. There's more, the protocols are more thorough, and you can, get more accurate results
mm,
with that.
mhm. Okay. Yeah, and it's interesting because um, from the outpatient places that I've worked at, I just feel like they're super busy.
Hmm.
Obviously, anywhere you work is going to be super busy, hospital or outpatient. It's just the type of setting, like what kind of setting do you want to be as a sonographer? Like, you can thrive really well in an outpatient setting if the hours fit you well and if the company values fit you well, and you can also thrive in a hospital setting. um, the hospital though can be very tough for some people because when you do inpatients, you do people that are like really sick, you do patients who are like, we talk about the pathology, so they might have a lot of difficult things like IV lines, surgeries. You'll see chest tubes, and you'll be scanning patients in the ICU. So people who are literally on ventilators, people who look like they're not doing so well, and you have to be careful with how you're scanning them. You have to maneuver your probe around all their bandages, and you see them in the worst possible state in their life. So, you know, being in a hospital setting also is very difficult and hard for some people as well, especially for people who can't deal with those kinds of things.
Hmm.
Um, but I think, you know, when I was a student, when I first was going into the field, I was like, I don't know how I would handle that kind of stuff. But obviously, being a healthcare worker, you learn how to process these kinds of patients and deal with the feelings of working in a hospital, right? Because now you're going to be around people who are uh, possibly really ill, or people who are what we call contact in a hospital. So that means you have to, you have to gown up because you don't know what they have. Like they might have some kind of infection, and you have to learn these kinds of things. You might see more blood in a hospital setting than outpatient setting. So those are things that I feel like we need to let people know about for them
Hmm.
to distinguish whether hospital or outpatient is better for them too. Have you
Yes,
seen those
and
kinds of patients in echo and vascular?
yes.
Mhm.
Echo, no, because I'm in outpatient.
Uh-huh.
Vascular, I was there for the hospital. In the hospital, I was like inpatient most of the time, and I've seen, blood, bodily fluids, uh, gangrene, amputees, ulcerations, just a lot
Mhm.
of like, if you're disgusted by feet or like anything with that, I'm like, you could get grossed out, or like flaky feet.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
very common.
you could get, yes, so you could get grossed out very, very easily. Yeah, so it's, we're just sharing these, so not like it's a bad thing. It's just it's there because of the setting that we're in, and it's just for you to figure out if it is for you or not.
Mhm.
Because each place has their pros and cons.
Yeah. So I have 2 videos on my YouTube channel. One of them is like outpatient versus hospital sonography. So it's essentially the same thing where I just kind of delineate the differences between the two. But then the other videos is my tips for somebody who wants to work in a hospital setting, like what you might see and what you might find, because it's a whole different, like we said, complete different world to work in a hospital versus outpatient. Um, and, either way you go, either decision you make, there's going to always be jobs in both. And just because you work at one doesn't mean you can't work at the other. And a lot of people work two jobs in this field. So if you even want the opportunity to work at both, you can. There's so much opportunity in this field right now. And when I first started, I worked at outpatient private clinics. So I worked in a cardiovascular office, and all I did was veins, arteries of the legs, the arms, and maybe one or two like renals here and there. But it was an outpatient setting. So I worked great day shift hours, but it got really stressful with the appointment system and things like that. Front desk, that can be very stressful, the way they schedule things. And that can be very stressful. But then I got a job in the hospital setting a few months later. So then I worked both jobs, per diem, both jobs, worked in the hospital, did the whole thing. Obviously, I was used to the hospital, right? Because I came from clinicals, but I worked in the hospital setting, did call, and worked at the outpatient office. So, you can do both if you really wanted to. And this would probably be a good episode for the future, but kind of like how to juggle two different jobs. But
I was
it's
thinking of that. I was going to ask
yeah.
you, how long did you do that for
I
before you
worked
decided to, quit
go
the
one job.
outpatient? Yeah.
I did two jobs for a good 4 years of my life until I went full time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
I didn't know.
all my life since I was like 18, I've always worked at least two jobs at the same time, or I was in a good transition of working two and then moved to one, but then still
Mhm.
work two.
Yeah.
I'm just a very workaholic, I feel like. But in this field of ultrasound, it's really easy to work two different jobs, and
Mhm.
people are usually scared about that. But I think it's easy only because they're very good at if you're very good at scheduling yourself, and the companies understand that you're going to have two jobs, it's very easy to have two jobs in this field. And I've seen a lot of students, like new grads, who end up getting two job offers and taking both. And it's doable. You just have to manage your time. And I personally, like, I like both hospital and outpatient. Like, I really wouldn't mind working outpatient if I really wanted to,
Mhm.
but I just gravitate to hospital more. I like hospital more. There's a few things with outpatient that I just really don't like, and that's why I would rather choose hospital. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know if it'll change when I have kids. Like, if the shift doesn't work for me in the hospital per se, then maybe I would want to do outpatient setting. It's just there's so much out there that we can all choose from as an ultrasound technologist, and it's really cool because you can decide. And I think there's a lot of need in both places. And but honestly, you can work both if you like both. Like, it's not too bad of a thing to do. So, do you think you'd ever work two jobs?
Two jobs. I wouldn't say no,
Yeah.
because I'm playing with the idea of it,
Mhm.
because I do want to do both echo and vascular. Because
Mhm.
if I get hired at a place that only does one, of course I would want a second job to do the other.
Mhm.
So
What if one was outpatient and one was hospital? Would you
I would
do?
I would do that. I'm not. I mean, just because I don't like outpatient or private clinic doesn't mean that I'm never doing it in my life.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
if I find like the right place, I would do it.
Yeah. Yeah, they both have their pros and cons, obviously at the end of the day, do what makes your guys's what fits in your guys' life at the time, and just know there's lots of opportunity out there. Hospital and outpatient, they're both really good. It's just you're going to get different types of workflow, and you're going to get different types of patients. In the hospital setting, the really big thing you guys need to make sure you know what you can do is handle those kinds of patients, handle really sick or really just patients who are in pain, a lot of pain, vomiting, crying, you know. Um, but that kind of difference to the outpatient is an outpatient, you might deal with patients who are crying because they may have cancer, or you get to know them a lot. You see them, you scan them every 6 months, people with thyroid issues, and you see them every 6 months.
Hmm.
It's a different kind of feel. Like my patients in the hospital, I don't know if I'll ever see them more than one time. We do get frequent flyers, but in the outpatient, there are people who get constant ultrasounds all the time, and you kind of grow to get to know your patients in that setting as well. So, just things to think about. Any other things you want to say about hospital?
I think we covered it. Uh,
Yeah.
I think we covered. If anything, we can always, dive deeper into
Mhm.
for a future episode.
Hospital or out, yeah. Yeah. Just
Yes,
know that they're
because
two different things.
yeah, and like we constantly get asked questions this all the time. So like as the year goes on, like next year and the year after that. Because I recently had a someone ask me questions about they don't know where they want to work or what
Uh-huh.
specialty and all that stuff. So
Yeah. And
it's
that's
a good
part of it.
episode. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is also I get asked one more thing is like about pay.
Yes.
Did you notice, or I don't know if they tell you the pay since you've been a student, but in your opinion in New York and stuff, have you done research to see who gets paid more in hospital versus outpatient? Because I can tell you in Vegas, hospital um, versus outpatient, like obviously the pay depends on your experience, but I have found that hospital settings pay more than the outpatient setting out here.
That's very interesting.
Hmm.
I do know that the pay depends on your experience. Depending on like private clinic or hospital, I'm not sure which pays higher
Hmm.
because I'm hearing like back and forth
Different
between like
things.
different hospitals, and then I'm seeing that private clinics who are hiring people depending on their experience. So it's like it's not just one thing that makes that that
The
that
pay range.
pay, but it's just like their experience and the need of the facility that want needs to hire, because
Mhm.
everywhere is short staff here, so everyone is
Yeah.
trying to hire.
Yeah, yeah. So at least in Las Vegas, I can tell people that, hospitals, we get paid more. Unless the outpatient really needs you, you can probably
Hmm.
like negotiate a better pay because they really need
Yes.
you. But I know for a fact that like I get paid more than people who have been doing ultrasound for a very long time, but they work in the outpatient setting because they like the outpatient patient setting better, and they feel like it works better for their life.
Hmm.
And some of them have tried to ask me to go to outpatient and work over there, but right now where I'm at, it's like I need the higher pay because obviously I need that right now in my life. I need
Hmm.
higher pay, but maybe in the future, like if pay wasn't an issue, then maybe I would go somewhere else. Unless they like, decided to pay me more.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's the thing you have to look into is what do you want most for yourself? What is it that fits your life currently? And maybe hospital is that, or maybe outpatient is that. But right now for me, hospital is where it's at for now.
I feel that too. Maybe in 5 years things change,
Yeah, you
but
never know.
yeah,
5 years, maybe you'll be a supervisor. You never know.
maybe we'll see. We'll see.
But we appreciate you
Awesome.
guys listening and tuning in. Hopefully, you
Yes.
guys see
Thank you so
the next
much.
episode where we will have
I
uh,
guess.
a guest. So she's a cardiac sonographer. So hopefully, you guys stay tuned for that one.
Yes, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to comment if you're watching this. Subscribe to Giselle's channel. Subscribe to our podcast wherever you're listening. Rate us if you can. Leave us a review. We appreciate it. So thank you.
Yes, guys. Have a good week.
Have a good week. See you next week.
Bye.